The Select-4 belongs in the same family with the macro and also with the mix, but as we just saw with the mix, there are unique properties to it, and the same thing is true for the Select-4, and that's what we'll be looking at in this lesson. All right, so the first thing to note is that there are two modes with the Select-4. There's fill mode on and there's fill mode off. And it's important to know what you're trying to accomplish from the get-go with this, because the ranges that you set, the depth of modulation that you set is going to be very different if you're working in fill mode versus not in fill mode. And in this first example, we'll work outside of fill mode. So the way this works is it's pretty much like a crossfader between different values that you have set up, going from 0% to 400%, each of these little arrows marking 100%. So if I go down to this first one here and I set this up with the chorus and I bring this depth to about 50, what that means is when I reach 100%, I'll hit the maximum value, which is 50. And then when I get to 200%, it's going to go back down to 0. In the fill mode, it's going to keep going up, all right? And that's really important because then the range that we set, we're probably going to want to bring that down if we want to have continual motion on it. So then if I go to the 200% mark, what I could do is I could set this up to work on the flanger. And again, I'll bring this to about 50 or so percent. So now when I reach 200%, or I should say when I reach 100%, I'm then going to start increasing the flanger while the chorus is coming back down. And so at 200%, I'm then going to be at the maximum value on the flanger, back to the minimum value on the chorus. At 300%, the flanger will go away, and this time we'll have the phaser come on, and we'll go 100% with it there. And then the one that's a little bit different is what you have set up at the 400% because there's no value greater than that. So in order to have that turning back down, you're going to need to come back down towards 300%. All right, and this makes perfect sense when you go through and kind of do this in real time. So I'll go and I'm going to close these down so I can see the distortion, and we'll bring the mix level on that up quite a bit. All right, let's go ahead and experiment with these and take a listen. Chorus, core flange, flange, flange phase, and then last is going to be phase distortion. So then just full-blown distortion. And right here, you could actually imagine where having the mix to control this would make like a lot of sense if we were to kind of put this right at 200 or so, and then go ahead and like set a range here, I guess up to about 2. And now with like the B, we could say, okay, well, we want the maximum value to be about here. We want the minimum value to be there. And as the song is going on, we could maybe change that range. So something like that would make a lot of sense. Let's pause the video and we'll come back and we'll take a look at what happens when we go into fill mode. To select fill mode, you're just going to right click and check this little box. And you have to be very careful when you're working with this because it will go beyond the range that you set, and it will continue to increase that as you go up. So if you're down here with the chorus and I set this back to 50, rarely do I want my chorus to go like 100%. I want to keep it in around like maybe the 40 to 70 range. But what's going to happen here is eventually once I blow past 100, it's going to keep going up. And then by the time I hit 200, it's going to go to 100%, and then it's just going to sit there and it's going to remain at 100% the entire time. So you need to be really careful with that. For some effects, that's going to be okay. Right? You'll hit a range and you'll be fine with it staying all the way at the very top. But with something like chorus, that's not what I'm going for. So I'm actually going to bring this way down to like maybe 0.2 or 0.15. And then we'll see that when I get to the top, we're maxing out here at about 80, which is still a bit high. And I can come in here and I can actually set it so I could get it to be like 60, something like that. And then I'm going to be happy there. And so now what we're actually doing is we're combining and we're stacking the effects on top of each other. So with something like the flanger here, I need to be a little bit more careful and be almost like really subtle with it if I'm bringing it in with the chorus. Same thing is going to be true with the phaser. And then with the distortion, actually, maybe I could bring that more towards the front here and go into the distortion and allow that to kind of get more and more hot as time goes on. And so we could then watch and see, okay, at the distortion, maybe I even want more than that. Go ahead and do something like this, set the range that I want, and then we'll go down and we'll add in just a tiny touch of flanger. And again, now that there's only that 200% range, it's not going to go as high as something like what's set in the 100% range is going to. And then the last thing we can do is we can bring in the phaser, and in this case we can actually go ahead and map quite a bit, and we don't have to worry that much because we know it can't go any higher than this, right? It's going to start out lower and go higher. So now when we listen to this, in this case, we have a very nice, almost like smooth transitioning happening. And one thing I may need to do is bring in a little bit of amplitude, but very, very little. So that sounds pretty good, but if you're not careful with fill mode, you'll immediately just go to full blown, especially if you're using a lot of things at the 100%. All right, so that is the Select-4. Again, definitely something to modulate with other modulators, if you dare. One thing that I really should have mentioned that I didn't is that when you are working in fill mode, you could potentially go in here and set this up so that we were going at 50, where in this case, I'm actually going to go a little bit less than that. I'm going to go to about 40, and we'll see that by the time I get up to 200 or really here by about 300, we're going to be in at 100% on the chorus. But what I could do is I could actually then take the 300% and start to bring this back down. And so now as we go and we cross, we'll see that it goes up and then it eventually starts to come back down. All right, so that is something I wanted to show you, probably intuitive to most of you, but when I was going back and editing the video, I realized, oh crap, yeah, that's totally something you could do in fill mode if you wanted to try and limit the range and have it move back the other way. So just something to make you aware of if you didn't think about that immediately. It is something you can do if you want to bring that range back down.